What's up, everybody? My name is Scott Paddock, and today we're going to talk about the 2-5-1 chord progression. The 2-5-1 is without a doubt one of the most common chord progressions in jazz music. So today we're going to do an introduction and tell you what it is, how it works, and how to solo over top of it. So what is the 2-5-1? It's actually really easy if you already know your modes. The 2 is the Dorian mode, the 5 is the Mixolydian mode, and the 1 is the Ionian mode. If you don't already know your modes, I'm going to do some brief descriptions here, but I would strongly suggest checking out the video I did on modes. It's going to make this video make way more sense. Okay, so let's do a little brief description about modes. Modes are a fancy way of saying playing scales based on every degree of your major scale. So your very first mode would be the major scale. We're going to play this in the key of G on the alto saxophone, so that would be B flat for the C instruments and C for the B flat instruments. Okay, so the first mode is G. And of course, that's just the major scale, and the modal name for that is Ionian. The next mode starts on the second degree of the major scale. So in this case, we're playing in the key of G, so the second degree of the G scale is A. So we're going to play from A to A in the key of G. That mode is called Dorian, and when we go from A to A in the key of G, that gives us a flat third, which is a C natural instead of a C sharp that would be in your A scale, and a G natural, which would be a G sharp if it was in your regular A scale. So your Dorian mode is minor, so it's Dorian minor. Your 2, the second mode, is Dorian minor. And the final mode we're going to talk about today starts on the 5th degree of your major scale. So in the key of G, that'd be G, A, B, C, D. So we're going to play from D to D in the key of G. And by doing that, that gives us a flat 7, because from D, in the key of D, we have a C sharp instead of a C natural. So we have a flat 7. So that chord symbol would be D7, and that is your Mixolydian mode. So those are the modes and scales that we're going to use for your 2-5-1 progression. Okay, so let's play the scales for this progression in order. The first is the 2, which is Dorian minor, and in the key of G, that would be A minor, A Dorian. Then the 5 would be D, D Mixolydian. And then of course the 1 would be G major. When we put these chords together in a progression is just a fancy way of saying the way chords move together. That is how we get the 2-5-1. So an even more simple way to think about this is just play your major scale starting on the 2nd degree, then it starts on the 5th degree, and then it finally starts on the 1st degree. The chord progression for your 2-5-1 in the key of G would be A minor 7, D7, and G major 7. And if you look at those chords, they're all a fourth apart, and they go counterclockwise on the circle of fifths, so it'd be the circle of fourths going in the opposite direction. So now that you know what a 2-5-1 is, how do we approach it? The first step is just to play chord outlines. So we're going to play our A minor 7, then our D7, and then our G major 7. We put them all together. So you can hear those chords move as I'm playing that progression. The next step would be to play them as scales. So our A minor 7 scale would be A Dorian, then D7, and then G major 7. Now, a really great way to practice this progression is by playing what I call a 2-5-1 scale. So in a 2-5-1 scale, you play up the 2, then down the 5, and then up the 1. And what I actually like to do with the 1 is encapsulate the 1. So when I go up the 1, I hit the 7, I jump over the 1, go to the 9, and land on the 1. It sounds like this. And when you put the whole thing together, you can really hear the 2-5-1 progression. So you can hear those chords and those scales really intertwine. So this 2-5-1 scale is a really great way to learn your 2-5-1s and get really comfortable with the feel and the sound of it. So I would suggest practicing in all your keys. If you're intermediate, just do 4 sharps and 4 flats. If you're working your way through advanced, definitely try to do it in all 12 keys. There are several ways to approach a 2-5-1, but we're just going to talk about the 2 most basic ones since this is an introduction to what 2-5-1s are and how to play over them. The easiest way to play over a 2-5-1 is to just play in the key of 1 over everything. Since everything is based on the key of the 1, those notes fit your 2 chord, your 5 chord, and your 1 chord. So in the key of G major, your A Dorian, your D mixed Lydian, and your G major all have the same notes. So you could technically play your G major scale over all of those chords. And it would sound something like this. So when I did that, it just kind of sounded like I was improvising using a G major scale. You didn't really hear the chord changes, but it fits because you're playing the right notes at the right time. But you're kind of playing more over top of the changes than inside of the changes because you're not bringing out the chord tones. But when you're first starting to learn how to improvise over a 2-5-1, this is a very effective way to get from point A to point B. A second way to improvise over your 2-5-1s is to really bring out the chord tones so that you can hear the difference in the chords. So a chord outline solo is a great way to get started with improvising over 2-5-1 progression. So here's an example of that. So my first chord, I'm going to improvise using my A minor 7. Then I'm going to go to my D7. And then to my G major 7. So if I put them all together, so if you hear that, it sounds like a musical idea, but I'm only playing chord tones. Take a listen, I'll do it a different way this time. So those are 2 great ways to get started soloing over your 2-5-1s. The first, of course, just playing in the key of the 1, and then playing chord outline solos over top of the 2-5-1 so that you can really hear that progression. As you do that, you're just going to automatically start to stretch out and you're going to be hitting those chords and they're going to be sounding great. Thanks for taking the time to check out this video. I hope you found it useful, and if you did, I would really appreciate it if you would subscribe to my channel, hit it with a thumbs up, and share it with your friends. If you have any questions, hit me with a comment. Thanks again.